Public failure has a very specific kind of sting. It is not just the mistake itself, it is the eyes on you while it happens. Psychology has studied this. Some people recover from that moment in days, others carry it for years. The gap between the two groups is smaller than you think. It is also stranger than you expect. Researchers call the immediate aftermath of failure a shame spiral. Your brain does not just register the event itself, it starts predicting future judgment based on it. You imagine what people are thinking. You replay the moment on a loop. This spiral feels like insight, but it is mostly prediction. Most predictions made in shame are wrong. The brain in this state is not reasoning, it is defending. Here is where it gets interesting. A landmark study on shame resilience found something counterintuitive. It surprised even the researchers involved. People who recovered fastest were not the ones who ignored the failure. They were the ones who named it specifically, out loud or on paper, within the first day. Vague shame lingers for a long time. Named shame shrinks much faster. The brain treats an unnamed threat as ongoing. It treats a named one as processed. Marcus Aurelius seemed to understand this centuries before any psychologist wrote it down. He kept a private journal for this exact purpose. He used it to name his failures in plain language. This was not to punish himself. It moved the event from vague dread into a fixed sentence he could examine. He wrote that fearing failure is itself a kind of failure. It is a failure at the one thing that truly matters, governing your own mind. The failure itself was almost secondary to how he chose to hold it. Epictetus offered something even more direct than that. He taught that other people's opinions are not yours to control. Their judgment of your failure was never truly your business in the first place. This sounds harsh until you notice what it actually removes. It removes an endless, exhausting task. That task is managing an audience that was never fully paying attention anyway. Most people spend far less time thinking about your failure than your anxious mind assumes. Psychology backs this up with something called the spotlight effect. Researchers found something striking. People dramatically overestimate how much others notice and remember their mistakes. In one well-known study, participants wore an embarrassing shirt into a room full of strangers. They guessed that half the room would remember it later. In reality, fewer than 1 in 4 people even noticed at all. The audience you perform shame for is smaller than you imagine. It is also far less attentive. Recovery speed also depends on what researchers call self-compassion, a concept that sounds soft but performs remarkably well in studies. People who spoke to themselves like a struggling friend recovered faster. This was significantly faster than people who criticized themselves harshly. Harsh self-talk often feels like accountability. It usually functions more like a wound that will not close. Seneca wrote something that captures the same idea from a different angle. He said we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Public failure is almost entirely an imagination problem once the actual moment passes. The event itself usually lasts only seconds. The replay can last months if you let it. Choosing not to feed the replay is not denial at all. It is simply refusing to relive a moment that already ended. There is a practical sequence that emerges from all of this research. First, name the failure specifically and briefly. Do not decorate it with extra meaning. Second, remind yourself of the spotlight effect. The audience in your head is almost always larger than the one that actually existed. Third, speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love. Imagine they just went through the same thing. Fourth, let the event end where it actually ended. Do not resurrect it nightly through rehearsal. None of this makes failure painless. Stoic philosophy was never about numbness. Modern resilience research is not about numbness either. Both are about one thing. They shorten the distance between the event and your return to steady ground. The people who recover fastest are not immune to embarrassment. They simply refuse to let a few seconds of public error write their story. They will not let it define the next 6 months. Marcus Aurelius failed publicly more than once, as any emperor inevitably does. He was not remembered for avoiding failure entirely. He was remembered for something else. He returned quickly and honestly to his own standards afterward. That return is the real marker of strength. Not the absence of stumbling, but the speed of the return. Both ancient philosophy and modern psychology now agree on this. Consider two people who make the exact same mistake in a meeting. One spends the rest of the day replaying it, imagining what colleagues must be thinking, rehearsing apologies that never get delivered. The other names the mistake once, makes a small correction if needed, and returns to work within the hour. 6 months later, almost no one else remembers the moment at all. Only one of these two people is still carrying it. This is not a difference in talent or toughness. It is a difference in process. The person who recovers quickly is not suppressing the discomfort. They are simply not adding extra layers on top of it. Most of the long-term damage from public failure comes from the layers we add afterward, not from the failure itself. Researchers studying resilience have identified a pattern they call cognitive fusion, where a person starts to believe they are their mistake rather than someone who simply made one. I failed becomes I am a failure. That single shift in language changes how long the pain lasts. Separating the action from the identity is not a minor semantic trick. It is one of the most consistently supported findings in the entire literature on emotional recovery. Marcus Aurelius practiced this separation daily, almost as a discipline in itself. He reminded himself that actions can be judged and corrected without condemning the entire self attached to them. A mistake was information, not identity. This distinction, more than any single technique, is probably the clearest bridge between what he wrote 2,000 years ago and what resilience researchers measure in laboratories today. The next time you fail publicly, try running the sequence once, deliberately. Name it plainly. Remember the spotlight effect. Speak to yourself gently. Let the event end on schedule. It will not remove the sting completely, and it does not need to. It simply gives you a faster road back to steady ground. The same road philosophers were quietly mapping long before anyone measured it in a lab. There is one more detail worth remembering when the sting is still fresh. Almost every person you admire for their composure has a private list of embarrassing failures nobody ever hears about. What separates them is not a shorter list. It is a shorter recovery time between each entry on it. Strength was never about avoiding the list. It was always about how quickly you put the pen down and kept walking.